Commander Zekthul's mandibles clicked in anticipation as his fleet descended upon the human colony of New Meridian. Intelligence reports suggested a population of barely 50,000, miners, farmers, and their families scattered across a barren moon orbiting a dying star. Easy prey. The hegemony had conquered 47 species in the past millennium. Humans would be the 48th. Deploy the fear drones, Zekthul ordered, his 6 eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. Let them taste despair before we begin the harvest. The massive ships cast shadows over the colony's modest settlements. Atmospheric processors hummed their last breaths as hegemony vessels blocked out the artificial suns that kept this world habitable. Children should be screaming. Adults should be fleeing in panic, abandoning their young as every other species had done. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The humans organized. Within minutes of the invasion fleet's arrival, every civilian had vanished into underground bunkers that scanners somehow couldn't penetrate. The surface installations, rather than falling silent, began broadcasting on all frequencies, not pleas for mercy, but tactical information. Grid 77 maintained defensive positions. Medical teams to Station 4. All units, remember, no prisoners taken means no intelligence gathered. Make them work for every meter. Zekthul's tactical officer, a nervous Vorthak named Ixneem, studied the readings with growing confusion. Commander, the atmospheric processors are still running, but differently. They're producing something else now. Before Zekthul could respond, the first wave of landing craft descended. They should have met scattered resistance from poorly armed colonists. Instead, they encountered kill zones. Humans emerged from concealed positions like ghosts, wielding weapons that shouldn't have existed on a civilian world. Mining charges became improvised explosives. Industrial equipment transformed into kinetic weapons. Even the children, when glimpsed through thermal imaging, weren't cowering. They were carrying supplies and ammunition with military precision. "Sir," came a panicked transmission from the surface. "They're not fighting like civilians, they're fighting like—" The transmission cut to static. Ixneem's secondary arms trembled as he analyzed the developing battlefield. "Commander, this colony, it's not what our intelligence suggested. These aren't ordinary farmers and miners." On the main viewer, a human figure stepped into view amid the ruins of what had been a marketplace. She was elderly, gray-haired, wearing simple work clothes, but she moved with the calculated precision of a predator, and in her hands was a weapon that made Zekthul's combat scanners scream warnings. "Hegemony forces." The woman's voice crackled over their communications, somehow having hacked their secured channels. "This is Commander Sarah Chen, formerly of the Earth Defense Corps, currently enjoying retirement on New Meridian. You have 30 seconds to withdraw before we stop playing nice." Zekthul's laugh was a harsh, chittering sound. One elderly female thinks she can threaten the might of the hegemony? Prepare orbital bombardment. 25 seconds, came Chen's voice, unnaturally calm. That's when Zekthul noticed something that made his blood run cold. The atmospheric processors weren't just running. They were manufacturing something. The air itself was becoming weaponized, filled with nanoscale particles that began eating through his ship's hulls. 15 seconds. All across the colony, buildings were shifting, revealing themselves to be camouflaged weapons platforms. What had appeared to be grain silos opened like flowers, exposing missile batteries. The school playground retracted to reveal an anti-orbital cannon. 5 seconds. Zekthul finally understood. This wasn't a civilian colony, it was a retirement community for human veterans. The revelation hit him like a kinetic round. Humans didn't fear extinction because they understood something the hegemony had never grasped. When your entire species was born from a world that spent millions of years trying to kill you, when your people had clawed their way up from primitive hunters to starfarers through sheer bloody-minded persistence, when your culture was built on the simple principle that giving up was never an option, extinction wasn't a fear. It was a challenge. "Time's up," Commander Chen said. New Meridian. erupted. Every human on that moon, from the 80-year-old former admiral who'd coordinated the defense of Proxima Centauri to the 16-year-old girl whose grandmother had taught her to turn fertilizer into explosives, fought with the fury of a species that had never learned the meaning of surrender. They fought when their weapons ran dry, using tools and improvised weapons. They fought when their positions were overrun, falling back to prepared positions that turned pursuit into a death trap. They fought when injured, when outnumbered, when any rational species would have sued for peace. But humans weren't rational. They were impossible. As Zekthol's flagship burned around him, his dying transmission reached Hegemony High Command. Do not engage the humans. They are not afraid of extinction. They treat it as a sports event. My fleet is gone. They're singing while they fight. What kind of species sings during warfare? What kind of... The transmission ended. 3 days later, the first human fleet arrived at New Meridian, led by Admiral Martinez aboard the dreadnought Unconquerable. They found 50,000 humans very much alive, having turned a hegemony invasion force into scrap metal and spare parts. Commander Chen met the Admiral at the landing pad, still wearing her work clothes, though now they were considerably more singed. "Status report, Commander?" Martinez asked. Chen smiled, the expression somehow more terrifying than any weapon the Admiral had ever seen. "Colony secure, sir. Minor pest control situation, but we handled it. Oh, and the grandkids loved the excitement. They're already asking when the next batch of aliens will show up." Martinez looked around at the improvised fortifications, the repurposed alien technology, and the cheerful faces of humans who had just fought off an interstellar invasion fleet like it was a particularly energetic community defense drill. "Any casualties?" he asked. "Mrs. Peterson sprained her ankle setting up the anti-aircraft battery, and young Tommy got a splinter building spike traps," Chen reported seriously. "Doc says they'll both make full recoveries." The Admiral nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense. In the human military, it did. Because humans had learned long ago that extinction wasn't something to fear. It was something to mock, to spit in the face of, to laugh at while you kept fighting long past the point where any sane species would have given up. The hegemony had made one fatal error in their calculations. They had assumed humans were like every other species they'd conquered. They weren't. They were human, and humans don't go quietly.